Hi, everybody.
What does it say when the 30-second intro is more than the whole call?
Yeah. So we're here to discuss the earnings call. Now, I will say it's one of those things where it was like the call itself was very boring. Like no real news, nothing that.
Am I working? Sorry.
Yeah. But the actual results were impressive. You know, the street expected them to lose like 40 cents, some odd cents in the quarter, and actually made 32 cents. Now, obviously, you know, COVID-19 has had an impact on the parks experiences business, but, you know, they lost less money at Disney Plus than they had thought, and consumer products made up for a lot of the theme park softness. And then, you know, television is still sort of coming along strong to kind of help fund all of this. You know, in his quote in the earnings release, you know, he talks about Bob Chapek, the Disney CEO, talks about 146 million total paid subscribers of streaming services. But, you know, Disney Plus has nearly 95 million subscribers across the globe. And I'm trying to find the number of what they had on basically a month earlier. They had, you know, I want to say 86 million, something like that. It was in the 80s. So, you know, I think, I noticed Rich Greenfield from Lightshed was on CNBC earlier, and he's like, they got to get at least 90 million subscribers for people to be positive about the stock. Well, they kind of blew past that and got 95 million. So, so that business is great. Obviously, you know, ESPN Plus is continuing to grow, doubling in the last year. Hulu's continuing to grow. You know, we've talked often earlier, like even early this morning, how, you know, kind of look at it a bundle business. But, you know, in the end, I mean, obviously the market is happy. Last I checked, in after hours trading, the stock was up, about 3 points to an all-time high of 194 and some change, which is, I mean, impressive if you think that, you know, at its 52-week low, I want to say was at 76, 79.
I thought so, but and if you look at the after hours, it was up to as high as 198 for a minute there.
Yeah, so it's the 79. The low was March 18th at $79, and the high is right now. So, so great results. But you know, oftentimes they use this opportunity to announce a new project or an expansion of something, and there's not a whole lot here. You know, they expect Hong Kong Disneyland to open this quarter. This quarter ends at the end of March, so imminently. But Disneyland and Disneyland Paris, I mean, Disneyland Paris was announced as not even opening until April 2nd at the earliest. Disneyland, I think it's safe to say if you're going to announce a new ticketed event in mid-March, you're probably not expecting to open by the end of March. But yeah, I mean, is there anything that jumped out to you?
I mean, not really. There wasn't. I was glad that he did mention the pass holder thing a little tiny bit. Right after I complained to Doobie that he still hadn't said anything about it. Basically just talking about that was one of the things that they were rethinking, rethinking their businesses in light of COVID, and canceling the annual pass holder program and revamping that was part of that. And just kind of talking about how the parks for years now had a stronger demand than supply. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It didn't exactly get to my question, but at least that it came up. And then the only other thing was just kind of interesting to hear how Chapek is thinking about the next year, in terms of social distancing and masks. And basically he made it sound like they expect to do it to the end of this year, but he's absolutely not thinking it's going to happen next year. So I don't know how you just flip a switch on New Year's Eve.
Happy New Year. Yeah. And I mean, you know, it is funny how, like, you know, Anthony Fauci was on the Today Show today saying, like, you know, by April, everyone who wants a vaccine will get a vaccine. And so, you know, I think that story has changed frequently as, you know, our understanding of how to get this done. You know, we just got more vaccines ordered, I guess. But yeah, I think it's going to be a phased approach. I think it's going to, you know, it sounds like they might do 6 feet, then 3 feet, then normal. Like they're kind of gonna phase it in, and they should have some experience of kind of loosening restrictions from China. Obviously, China is a very different culture, different regulatory structure. But
I think that started at 1 meter when they reopened. That was one of the things I thought was interesting watching some of their reopening things, is that it was at 3 feet instead of 6 feet.
Right. I will say too, what I thought was on the park side is basically they said they're going to keep slowing down their capital expenditures. Previously, they said it would jump back up after this year. Seems like it's not going to be the case. Now, so in the quarter, let's just use domestically, they were spent 336 million compared to 820 million the previous year, in the previous year quarter. So a lot. I don't think you're going to see a huge announcement of more projects. I think you're going to see them maybe finish projects that have been put on hold, such as like Tron Light Cycle Run, and obviously Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway at Disneyland. But I don't think they're ready to completely ramp back up yet. Which makes they're currently making money, not necessarily the whole parks business, but the parks that are open are making money. So you probably want to kind of thread that needle, and I think this has lasted longer than anyone originally thought. That might not. In conventional wisdom, so they might just. It might be another year before we really see a big ramp up in spending at the parks.
Yeah, and I thought that part was interesting. So like during the quarter, the domestic parks lost something like $700 million, and the foreign parks lost to something. So together it was $1 billion. But then on paper, because they're coupled with products now, that loss shrinks to like 100 million.
Yeah.
So it's definitely interesting to me that if Florida is operating at a profit and has been open for the entirety of this quarter, that means Disneyland on its own lost more than 700 something million dollars.
Well, I don't know how much the cruise ship would fall into this. Not that it's not the same. You don't have the same labor costs. Obviously, there's less people, but you have fuel, and those just seem more expensive to maintain. Per guest than like Disneyland does. Obviously, Disneyland's much bigger, but yeah, Disneyland lost a lot of money, and and I think we're getting the downtown Disney sort of expansion. I think, granted, this was this quarter ended in January, so part of that Buena Vista Street was open but not serving any food, so it was it's not making a big dent into Disneyland's. It's probably better than nothing, but you're not looking at something where it's like, okay, yeah, this is how we'll get by. And this is, remember, this is with all those people still on furlough. So this is just your basic infrastructure, people that they feel they need to keep on, and keeping the lights on, so to speak. They did.
Well, then I think that this next quarter is going to be even more interesting for Disneyland perspective, because you're going to have the refunds for all of those pass holders who are still holding out hope. And then you're also going to see if that's offset by whatever they end up doing at DCA.
Well, you probably don't have the refunds will probably not hit the balance sheet. It'll hit cash, but because it's unearned, they probably didn't book the revenue for the annual pass yet. So it's not like it's not going to be a negative on earnings. Now you might see a bigger, a cash impact because they're taking it out of the bank to pay people back, but it wasn't their, they didn't earn the money yet. They split that up per month. Even if you pay all at once, they don't recognize the whole pass right up front. But I think it's going to be interesting to see, this quarter is going to be still a little cloudy, because you're going to have three things. You're going to have shutdown. You're going to have Buena Vista Street with food and Downtown Disney with food. And then you're going to have this ticketed event thing for the last 2 weeks. So it's like, you're not going to be able to look at next quarter and say, like, oh, this is how it works. And then hopefully sometime between April, May, and June, they'll get back to some form of regular operation. and then so I don't know that we'll ever really know how well it did, unless they come out and tell us. But we do know that they vaccinated 100,000 people. Or I shouldn't say that. They've administered 100,000 vaccines at the Disneyland site in Orange County. So, silver linings, I guess. But as a whole, I mean, we can't bury the lead that the parks did better than we expected. What announcements, if any, do you think they will share during the annual meeting? That's a great question, because they, especially Bob Chapek, loves making announcements. Like you could almost tell that he was trying to announce things that were announced today as making them announcements. Like he kept talking, he talked about the Wakanda series from Ryan Coogler. Like you got the sense he wanted to make announcements, but in this market where they don't know anything, it's really hard. They're not going to announce an opening date for an attraction because they don't know when the park, what the situation at the park is going to be. I mean, they tried that. Remember, he announced at the last shareholder meeting opening day for Avengers Campus, which is now sometime this year. And so I feel like parks would be too hard. I mean, they could do something like maybe announce the name of the second new ship or something. But I think, they might announce more media titles, particularly on the television side. They may announce sort of a, because at the earnings investor day, they didn't talk about television at all, in terms of what it will be on Disney Plus. So they might have something to say there, but it's really hard. A lot of these times, these announcements, when you go to D23 Expo or whatever, they basically kind of hold it for a little bit and then they look at what they got and they say, okay, that's what we're announcing at D23 Expo. It's not like, you can hold things too long for that. And it's not like you can make things, rush things to be there either. You just have to see what's on the plan for the next couple of days and kind of just slam them all together and be like, hey, here's what we're announcing.
Can I say that I need Chapek to work on his opening preamble? Like the way he delivered that little speech, it was weird. Like he just different tones. Like some of it sounded giddy, just weirdly, and then other parts were just very. I could picture him as an audio animatronic, and that's not good.
Do you know what? Who I thought of this whole time was how grateful Bob Iger must be that he didn't have to be there. It was his birthday yesterday too.
Oh, happy birthday, Bobby!
But yeah, the financial part of me is like, wow, this is like a blockbuster quarter. I mean, relatively what we expected. The Disney fan of me is just like, nothing happened. Like usually we have at least one or two stories to come out of this of something new and exciting. And investor days are not.
They try to push him on Black Widow, and then he's just like, no, we're just staying flexible.
Yeah, he is better at basically shutting him down and not answering questions than Bob Iger was. Like they'll ask him a question and he'll answer a different question, but of the similar theme but not answering the question that was asked. I mean, we can talk into my sort of opinion of many analysts another time, but if they knew, they don't know the business, how to run the business better than anyone else. So sometimes these questions can be a little frustrating.
But I was frustrated that one guy kept calling it Analyst Day instead of Investor Day. I'm like, you're not that special.
Especially when it's virtual. But,
yeah.
And we've heard this trend too. I mean, this isn't really on brand, but they do seem to kind of want to keep ESPN in the gambling business. They obviously have a partner with they're partners with DraftKings and Caesars, but and I don't think they're ever going to get into just be a straight gambling provider, but I think it's something that they're kind of dipping their toe in, especially as it seems like younger sports consumers are much more invested in that than like a traditional sports consumer.
Probably good they went with Caesars over MGM. I saw MGM had some sportsbook issues this weekend.
Yeah. Well, what they should do is they should rebrand Disney's Hollywood Studios and add sports gaming, and then it can become Disney MGM Studios.
There you go.
Okay. Okay. Well, as I said, I wish I could comb through this and find all these interesting things, but there's really not that a lot. Spider-Man's Miles Morales performed well, but I would notice that they didn't mention anything about the Avengers game, which did not perform well. But other than that, not. I think it's just we're impressed that they were able to manage their business to make money in when many of their businesses are not running. But okay, so we got one more thing coming later today at 5:30 Pacific. We'll post our recap of Grownish from Freeform. Marshall will have his take on the latest episode. And then we will get excited for all the fun we have coming tomorrow. In case you missed it, Tony's been at Disney Parks today seeing some of the new offerings, and Jeremiah's been at Legoland, Florida, to see their new stunt show. So we have full coverage on YouTube and other places. But other than that, don't forget, check out at 5:30. And then tomorrow we'll have a full slate of coverage as well. Any final words, Kyle?
Nope.
Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. Have a great day.